Hey everyone, let's walk through SimpleLeveling, how it works, the example project, and how to get started with a fresh project. Alright, here's the example project for SimpleLeveling. You're going to want to open the level, third person level. There are others in here, but this is the only one with actual content. So before I do anything, let's run it and see it in action. So I'm going to turn on automatic refresh here. So what this does is it just causes this entire panel to refresh every second or so. So you can see this happening all in real time. So the third person level that I've set up for this basically just has these XP actors, and they award XP as you collide with them on actor begin overlap essentially. And you can see the XP is going up for fishing right now. As I kind of walk through this, I'm already level 2. So let's go to something else like combat here. So you can see it's got different XP that it's awarding, and obviously there's different requirements for leveling up. So you can see that all just kind of happening as I walk over it. And crafting has its own. And that's essentially the entire example project. So how this is set up is exactly how you'll award XP to your players when they're playing your game. And if I click on one of these in the panel, size this up a little bit, you can see I actually show the entire XP table for the row that you've clicked on. So you can see how I've configured combat leveling. It's 100 XP to start, then it starts scaling up, and once you get to level 100, you're needing 400,000 almost XP to level up from 99 to 100. I didn't set any of these. I didn't make this manually. It's all generated, and I'll walk you through how I did that. All right, next we're going to look at the actual data asset, so the configuration for all of this. So let me stop this. It's a good idea also to stop automatic refresh, just so it's not trying to update when nothing's running. All right, so first in the content browser, if you look under third person, all of the data assets for SimpleLeveling that I use to configure it are right here. So they have this data asset leveling. That's what I'm showing now. So let's look at that and how this is all set up. All right, so the thing to know about SimpleLeveling is the way it works is everything is considered a leveling track. So each of these, the combat, fishing, crafting, it's all considered in this SimpleLeveling track. And what that means is each one has its own XP requirements. Each one can level up independently and will generate events and all that for you as it gains XP and as it levels up. So let's look through the configuration here. So first off is the leveling track ID. So this is what uniquely identifies it within the system. So whenever you're querying or updating XP or adding levels and all that good stuff, you're going to need to know this leveling track ID. The name and description, those are just localizable text fields. You can put whatever you want here. It's just a convenience for you to display inside your game if you want to. Next up is default level. So this is essentially the starting level for the player. Most likely it's always going to be 1, but if you need something else, you can put it here. It can't be 0. So the thing is, none of these values can actually be 0, because if they were 0, then all the calculations would be thrown off for the very first 0 to 1 level. So it always starts at 1. Same goes for min level. Max level can go all the way up to 999. This was just a choice to limit it here, just to keep all of the XP logic and XP calculations within kind of the int32 bounds. Next up is the overflow policy. So overflow policies defines how XP is used when you level up. So let's say you need 50 XP to level up to the next level, but you gain 100. So carryover means you're going to have a 50 left over, and that's going to get added towards the next level. The other option, discard, which is a little bit more unique, a little bit less of a common use case, but if you need it, it'll essentially discard any XP over what's needed to get to the next level. So every time you level up, you're always going to start at 0 if you're using the discard. So next is base XP required. So the base XP required is essentially just the first amount of XP you need to get from level 1 to level 2. So I've set mine at 100 here. Again, you don't want it to be like super large, like 1,000,000. It's going to throw all the calculations off. All right, the last thing on the leveling track configuration is the XP curve. This is how the XP calculations are done. So how the XP table is built is using this curve. Let's clear it here for just a second. So if your configuration looks like this, no curve, it'll use the base XP required as linear growth. So it'll keep applying this 100 over and over again as you level up, ever increasing, but just in a linear fashion. If I change this to an actual curve, what it's going to do now is it's going to use the 100 XP as the level 1 to 2 still, but then it's going to apply that when it's querying this curve, and then it's going to generate that XP table over time and over all your levels using this curve. Okay, so let's look at the curve now to see how the XP tables are built. So if I go to Content Browser, you can see I have 3 curves: cubic, linear, and step. So I'm using cubic for the combat one. I'm using the step when I configured the crafting level. See step here. I left out the curve on fishing just so it has linear growth and you can see that. But you can switch these out however you want to test it using the example project. Any curve will work with any leveling track. Let's open the curve leveling cubic. So what I've done here is I've started at 0 on the X and Y value, and it goes all the way up to 1 and 4,000. So this is important. You want to keep X always between 0 and 1. That's what keeps the calculations resolving out cleanly across your entire min level to max level. But the Y can be whatever you want. So right now this is 4,000, and you saw, remember, it went up to almost 400,000 when I reached level, for reaching level 100. So let's actually modify this real quick. We can change this to 2,000. So you can see it changed. You can right click here, click fit. Okay, so if you click fit, it'll kind of reset the view to fit the curve. So you can see now the curve goes from 0, 0 to 1, 2,000. So let's save this. Let's go back here to the leveling asset. Make sure this is using the cubic curve, which it is. And then if I turn on automatic refresh and run this, you get the new level. So the total XP for level 1 to 2 is still 100. See that here. But now the XP is decreased. So if we go all the way down, so 99 to 100 now requires 200,000 rather than the almost 400,000 it used to. So this is all built using that curve over that 0, 0 to 1, 2,000. So you can just play around with it. You can see what works for you. You can do some really cool stuff with this, like the step curve. So if I go back here and I change this to the step curve, you can see how this is built kind of just in these steps form, which is a little weird and does some very strange stuff to the XP, but it's pretty cool to see it in action. So now, if we go to combat, so remember this is now using that step curve, you can see it's 100 over and over again. And that's because, see, this first part here is all flat. It's all at 0, 0. Well, it's all at 0 and then, moving along the X. So we go back to our XP table, and I scroll down, you can see right here, this switch over from level 21 to 22. It goes from 100 to suddenly 2,000. And then you can see it stepping up as the levels go on, and it's all evenly distributed across all the levels. All right, let's now look at the actors in the scene. So let's come over here, and if we look at these, get this out of the way here. I have these 3 actors. They're all this add XP actor. They have configurable level track ID and XP amount. So this is the leveling track that will be affected and the amount of XP that will get added. If we come in here to the add XP actor, if we look at the event graph, there's only one thing going on, and that's this on actor begin overlap. So let me drag these out. So this is my style where I just kind of stack blueprints. Like to keep things kind of compact, just so that it's easier to see in one window, but you can kind of spread them out here just to get a better idea of where these wires are going. But essentially what you're doing here is on actor begin overlap, we're just going to add the configured amount of XP to the leveling track ID. And that's it. That's how you add XP with SimpleLeveling. You just need these 2 values, and you're good to go. Broadcast event, as the documentation kind of states, this allows you to turn off the delegates that fire. when you add XP or when you gain levels. So adding XP here could cause, well, it will cause XP to get added, number one, but two, it could cause a level up. And not only just one level up, it could cause multiple level ups, depending on the amount of XP and the configured amount of required XP. So when we're talking about broadcasting an event, it could be one or more, depending on your setup. So if you don't want that to broadcast for any reason, just turn that off. That is it for this. Real quick note though, if you've never seen these nodes, these subsystem nodes, which you probably have with the enhanced input subsystem, but it might not be super obvious that this is the same thing. This is kind of a special node in Blueprints where it's doing some work for you, which just allows you to get these subsystems. And what's required is actually a world context object. Now that's a whole video unto itself. I'm not going to kind of explain what that is here. Just know that you can't get this node unless you have a world context object. And pretty much every single actor will, the levels will, so you'll probably never run into any issues, but there are scenarios and cases where you can't just retrieve this simple leveling subsystem as is here. But that's not a common use case, not something you have to worry about, just worth noting. All right, so now let's see how to set all this up from scratch. So I'm gonna go back and create a brand new project in Unreal. We're gonna skip over that in the video. You don't need to see that. So I'll be back in a second. All right, so here's a brand new project. So I just created a top-down project, just for something a little different. And you can see here, there's nothing in here yet. This is all just the default stuff you get with it. I'm just gonna put this in top-down since that's the level I'm working in. But before we do anything, you're gonna wanna open up the plugins. So if you go to Edit, Plugins folder, if you have SimpleLeveling installed into your engine version, it'll be right here, and you can just click it and enable it. We'll need to restart. But if you don't, then you'll need to go to Fab or the Unreal Engine launcher, and you want to install SimpleLeveling to your engine version. So it'll be right here to include. So let me restart now. All right, so the project's restarted. It's back up and running. And if we go back to plugins, gameplay, SimpleLeveling is enabled, so we're good to go. Couple caveats: you want to make sure your project is configured for C++. It is a C++ plugin, so it'll need to be there. The other thing to note, you can see Xcode here. You're probably working on a Windows machine. I do everything on Mac. Same principle still applies though. If you go to your actual kind of project, you'll have a plugins section here, and you'll just want to make sure SimpleLeveling is there and it's enabled. That's if you just want to use it via Blueprints, and there's more configuration here for the build.cs file that you'll want to make sure you add SimpleLeveling to. Formatting's off, but so SimpleLeveling here in the dependencies module, this will allow you to use SimpleLeveling in C++, so you'll actually be able to include the header files and use it directly there. Not necessary if you're just using Blueprints, but still good to know either way. Let me close this and just go back to Unreal here. So the tab's open by default for me, but if it's not, you'll just want to go to Window, scroll all the way down. You'll see the SimpleLeveling here. All my plugins show up right here in the Window tab, so just click on that and it'll open. Close that and close this. Okay, so let's look at how to configure SimpleLeveling completely from scratch here. We're gonna go to our content browser, wherever you want to put this, up to you and your project. But we're gonna search for data asset, and that'll be right here. I have a second data asset. This is the player mappable input config. I think you get this with enhanced input, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You don't want to use this one. This is actually the wrong one to use. You want to use this like pie shape one. If you have two. So just remember that, because I've been confused by that before. And then when we search, we're going to search SimpleLeveling, and then you see this subsystem definition. So all my plugins use the same kind of strategy with data assets. It creates a subsystem definition. This is what boots up kind of your project level configuration. So if I click that, we get a new data asset. And I'm just going to name it the same as the example project, which is leveling. If I open this, drag this over. Cool. So when you open up a fresh subsystem definition for simple leveling, you can see the leveling track definitions here, and it's empty. So let's add one. All right, so once we add one, we now can configure it however we want. So I can say leveling dot something, right? Doesn't matter, it's just the unique ID. Something cool. Then I can level up. All right, so let's set the default value. Let's keep it at 1 here, min value 1. And let's set the max to something like 5, something really small. And then we're gonna say maybe, let's say 50 XP, right? I'm gonna save this. And we can call this done for now. So if I come back to leveling top down, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open the level blueprint. So I wouldn't consider this a best practice. I would put this somewhere else in your project. But for just kind of showcase purposes, I think it's fine here for now. Just remember, you probably don't want to do this in a leveling blueprint because then you're tied to that specific level. Okay, so I retrieved the simple leveling subsystem, same as I kind of explained before. If I drag off of that, we're going to get the kind of function lookup screen. And if we scroll down to where it says simple leveling subsystem, then we're going to see all the functions the subsystem has and everything it can do. So we're going to call register subsystem definition. I'm going to wire that up. Again, this is just my stacking kind of style. And if I select the asset, the only one that will be available is the simple leveling definition asset. So I click that. That's it. So now what this does in the subsystem is it registers our leveling track, which is our leveling.something. With the system, it'll be tracked. You can add XP to it, and you're good to go. So if I play this now, I had automatic refresh still turned on. Leveling.something showed up. And you can see we're at level 1. We have 0 XP, and we need 50 to move to the next one. Let me size this up so it's easier to see. So cool. You can see levels 1 through 5 here, 50, 100, 150, and 200. So this is that linear growth I was talking about. So because we didn't supply a curve, it's just adding 50 over and over again based on the level that you need to level up from and to. So this isn't a lot of XP. So let's add a curve so that's a little bit more realistic, right? So if I come over here to the leveling track definition, I need to add this XP curve here. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to search for curve. And what you're going to want is this curve. So there's a couple others like Atlas and Table. Don't worry about those. We just want a normal curve, and it needs to be a float curve. So these others won't work with simple leveling. It only understands floats, and that's all we need for XP. So just be sure to select the curve float. Then we can name this whatever we want. So curve something, right? Just to kind of match our leveling track. So when you open the curve editor, you're basically just going to get this flat line. There's no nodes yet here, no keys as they call them. So if I add a key, I select it, you can now see the XY value. So I actually added it at an X value of -0.5 and a Y value of 0. So let me just zero that out, because that's what we want to do for curves. So always start at 0, 0. Then deselect that real quick. Let me just add another key. So if we remember, that has to be at 1. And then let's set this now to 100. And it looks a little funky here in the window. You might get that depending on the values you chose. That's why you just click fit. And once you click fit, it then now looks like a nice curve. So with this just as is, let's drop this in. Curve something, right? So you can see it here. I save that and I rerun. We get our leveling something again, but now the XP is up 50, 1300, 25, 3800. So that curve is defining all this XP here. And that's it. That's all you need to do to set up the curve with your leveling track. and you can define these however you want. So that's setting up the configuration for SimpleLeveling all from scratch. It was designed to be as simple as possible, get you moving as quickly as possible, and yeah, that's really it. The only other part would be adding XP, which is going to be based on your game entirely. So however you want to do that, you can. All it's going to be is essentially that add XP through the SimpleLeveling subsystem, exactly as I showed from the example project. All right, so we're here back in the SimpleLeveling example project. I just wanted to jump back in real quick, walk you through the editor UI so you know what's what, and then we can call this video a wrap. So first, we have a search bar. Second is the refresh button, and third are these options. So what it does is automatic refresh is going to set a 1 second timer. It's going to poll the world for leveling tracks and display that information if it's available. If it's not available, what you'll see is this, just kind of the header fields, and that's it. If you're doing level design, if you're doing something other than actually actively running your game in the editor, you're going to want to turn automatic refresh off. It's essentially sitting there, running code in the background, trying to find leveling tracks. Shouldn't cause any performance issues or weirdness in the editor, but it is running code. You'll just want to disable that so it's not running in the editor. Okay, so the next option to talk about are these two. They're just displaying the track name and track description if you want them. I usually leave them off to kind of clean up the visual clutter of having too many fields, but it's up to you. And lastly is verbose logging. So this is useful for debugging the actual editor. So if we come over here in the output log, and we scroll all the way down, you can see we have all our log categories for the SimpleLeveling plugin. The SimpleLeveling editor log is actually enabled right now, but there's no output logs coming from it, even if I click refresh, because verbose logging is disabled. So let me enable this, and let me click refresh. So you can see, now we can actually see logs from the editor. So it's useful if the editor is behaving oddly, or you think there's something wrong with it. It can kind of give you this extra little bit of information about the execution path and what's going on with it, so you can see what's happening. The most important thing to note when looking at these logs is this error here is not an error with your game, it's not an error with the plugin. What it means is it just can't find a world that has leveling tracks. And because the world isn't valid, because it's not running, you're getting this error. So if we were to run this, click refresh, you can see it went through the same exact process as before, but there's no error because now we have actual valid leveling tracks to display. And you can even see as I click on them, what's going on in the editor. And that's it for SimpleLeveling. Thank you for watching. For more plugin walkthroughs, please like and subscribe. And if you need any help, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.